Hey guys, Reviews More back with another quick tech review. This is on the Fractal Design Focus G computer case. So this is a mid-sized tower, but it accommodates a full ATX motherboard, although I will say just barely. So this is definitely the budget category at 60 bucks shipped. I think at Newegg I bought it for 55 plus $7 in shipping with a little bit of tax. You're looking at 65 to 67. So you're under $70 for a well-known brand case, but with an acrylic side panel. Now, before I get too far into the review, as always, if you like my stuff, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel, lets me do some more of these kind of videos. All right, so the big thing is I am not making this for myself, so you're going to see some computer cable management no-nos because I didn't purchase this particular case for myself. I don't tend to buy big name brand cases when I build computers because I like to experiment with some of the off brands that can be a little bit cheaper and sometimes have just as many features, if not more, for a lower price. But because I was making this computer for someone who's a friend, I didn't want to leave them hanging with a potential computer case that could have issues down the road. Although once the computer's in there, I find most cases, even in the budget category from unknown sellers, doesn't tend to impact the performance too much. The main problems you run into are airflow issues, and once you have them, they tend to start from moment go. They don't tend to get worse unless you just simply don't clean, but that's true of any computer case. All right, so as you can see here, it has two little front bays for optical drives. Those can be taken out or put back in. So if you want to have a clean finish, you can do that. If you want to go ahead and pop one out and put a disk drive in, but maybe you decide to take the disk drive out later, you can always pop it back in as long as you don't lose it. You're going to see me struggle here with these thumb screws because these have thumb screws that kind of don't really pop out. They just kind of dangle. So they unhook, but then they dangle out, and you just detach them. That way you don't lose the thumb screws. If you don't like that kind of situation, they also have traditional thumb screws that are inside the case itself, inside that little cardboard box you see there at the bottom. Overall, really happy with the general look of the case at this point. It's very easy to manage with. You got some decent areas for cable management. We're going to see some problems later on once I actually get the computer built, issues that I could not determine until after the computer was built, and I was seeing how the wires didn't quite lay right in certain areas, as well as the absence of a PSU shroud made life look not quite so nice inside the case. I purchased a traditional non-modular power supply for this person who's a friend of mine. Alright, this case comes for 3 spots for hard drives. There's enough space for 2 mechanical drives in those 2 bays down there, or you could use them for traditional SSD size drives. And you can also mount an SSD in the back right underneath where it says Fractal Design embossed into that back plate there. Overall, it looks really slick. The lighting isn't all that great because the fans are cheap. One big negative aspect of this, you'll notice there's no rear exhaust fan. So they spent the money on 2 fans in the front and then spend the extra money on that back fan, which is kind of disappointing. The trays come out. That's nothing really to write home about. Lots of cases do that. I suppose if you really wanted to, you could unmount one of the fans that's in the front there and stick it to the back, but then it would throw off the look of the front of the case when the lights were put on. So I'm not exactly sure how they were really planning on that. I think they cut costs there at the expense of making it a little bit better of a case. Popping off the front panel is very easy. It's just plastic pegs like most of these cases are. Put your fingers underneath the bottom and just kind of pull out firmly, and you won't have to worry about snapping or breaking anything. It's pretty robust. This is the filter system. You can pop all these things out. They have little bent tabs in there you can pop out and go ahead and clean it out when you need to. Really cool looking design. The mesh looks pretty clean even with those 2 little front optical drive bay doors you got there. It looks pretty good, especially for distance. And once the fans are on, it looks pretty nice. It would be a good intro system case for somebody. As it happens, the person I'm purchasing this for only needed it to run Photoshop, so I'm not running it with a GPU. I got an AMD 3400G just because I knew it was four cores with hyper-threading and an internal graphics card. It was all I really needed to run Photoshop. He doesn't do any gaming. He doesn't do any video editing on it. It's purely photo editing. He's an amateur photographer on the side. It comes with a USB 3.0, 2.0 audio, HD audio ports on the front, and a reset and on button. All the basics you'd expect from a case. All right, now here's my apologies. This looks like a mess, and I apologize for that. I had not done most of my cable management at this point in filming. I just kind of wanted to show you some of the flaws in it. Some cables I was able to work with. Most of the cables that connect to the power supply I was able to get kind of wrapped where they needed to be. The biggest issue is this one I'm pointing to. That is the high definition audio cable, and there is no way to wrap that around a full ATX motherboard and get it where it needs to go. Also, you see the Ketchum mustard fan because I purchased an aftermarket fan. Sorry, he's not going to look at it, so it doesn't really matter. If I were making this for myself, it would not have those ugly, nasty colors. And you notice right there, sorry, I'm going down, I'm moving around a little bit here. Bad camera work, bad photographer, bad me. All right, right there, you can see there is no room between the power supply and that motherboard. It is solid. So if you were building with a full-size ATX board into this thing, more power to you. You just won't have much room to work. So cable management will be very difficult, especially considering that probably the biggest flaw in this case that they overlooked was making that high definition audio cable too short. You can't wrap it around the back or up through the bottom of a full-size ATX motherboard, and because there's no shroud, all that extra cabling just kind of gets shoved in there. I was able to move around the connectors for all the drives. I was able to move that around to make that a little less intrusive. I was able to move some of that stuff off of the top of that casing for the mechanical hard drives in the hard drive bay. But overall, it was cable management. This thing just was not looking pretty. Normally, for this price range, if you're looking like an off-brand, you can usually have a PSU shroud, which means, hey, you get to hide all that crap. Now, the first thing probably ringing through everybody's brain is just get a modular power supply. That's all well and good. This was a budget build for someone who's literally doing Photoshop and treating this more as an office computer. So he wasn't looking to spend $800. He spent about $600. So you're not looking to do all that. Don't worry, the CPU wire gets moved out of the way later on. And this is what it looks like turned on, guys. It gets going. Looks really sharp. There's a lot of airflow as long as you got that back exhaust fan put in. For those of you who are curious, there is support for water cooling if you're into that kind of thing. In the front, you can set up as high as a 280 millimeter, and in the top, you can do 240. So you got some range to work with there if you so choose. But it will require removing those front two fans. But overall, I would say it's probably a 6 out of 10 for me. Price-wise, it's okay, but there are cheaper options that to me look better, have tempered glass, maybe even a PSU shroud. So I would probably look elsewhere. Although if you are a person who's literally just making this for the reason I made it, so you have space to work, have a reputable brand, and just a basic case, it'd probably work out for you. I think there's better options out there, but this has been the full review. It's the guy has the case now. Computer works great. He's just not worried about the looks of it. If you're more of a aesthetics kind of person when you build, I'd steer clear of this case unless you're looking at a situation where you're not putting any optical drives, because part of what made that cable management so difficult was the optical drive that had to be put in there for him. If you're just doing if you're like doing M.2 standard motherboard, a GPU probably be okay, but you're going to want a modular power supply because you had that you saw a rat's nest of wires down there. There's no way I could even zip tie all that stuff down in the back functionally and still have it connect where it needed to connect. There are others out there who are obviously better than me at doing this, so I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it would be very difficult without a modular system to do that. And when you're talking about modular power supply, you're looking at 80 plus. So at that point, to me, I'd say spend an extra 20, 30 bucks on the case to make life a lot easier when working with your higher dollar items. But overall, that's my review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, go ahead and hit me up in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to you. Have a great day.